Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a really cool alternate history, a world built on just one single, powerful what-if that completely flips everything we know about the modern age on its head.
Okay, let's just dive right in. I want you to imagine something. What if a revolution didn't start with a bang, but with a bestseller? I mean, a dense political pamphlet that somehow becomes as popular, as viral as a blockbuster novel. This isn't a book that just sits on a shelf. It's one that's actively reshaping the world, in real time.
In our history, right, this was a slogan for a pretty radical kind of fringe group. But in the world we're exploring today, this thing becomes the viral catchphrase of 1848. I mean, it is everywhere. It's on everyone's lips, from the factory workers in Manchester all the way to the farmers in Prussia.
And this is what's so crucial to get. We're talking about a massive shift in scale here. This isn't some dusty document for intellectuals. Nope, it's a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Think about it. This book's simple, really powerful message manages to unify an entire social class with a single idea. And this is all before the first shots of the revolution are even fired.
All right, so let's see what happens next. How does this one single change completely rewrite the history books? We're going to see how the historical spring of nations goes from a series of, failed uprisings into an absolute continental firestorm. And here is the key difference, right here. It's chaos versus coordination. In our timeline, the 1848 revolutions were a mess. Just a total jumble of competing interests. You had nationalists, liberals, all sorts of groups. And because of that, they were pretty easily crushed. But in this timeline, they have one single coherent idea pushing them forward, and that idea is communism. And you can just see the effect, can't you? This isn't some slow burn. It is an absolute explosion. It just rips across Europe in a matter of months, way faster than any army or king could possibly react. The dominoes don't just wobble here. They completely shatter.
And get this, in every single major European power, the working class doesn't just support the revolution, they hijack it. They're not asking for a seat at the table anymore. No way. They are smashing that table to pieces and building a brand new one. They're demanding communes, workers' councils, the whole shebang, the total seizure of production. So all of a sudden, the two guys who wrote this little pamphlet, Marx and Engels, are yanked from these obscure, smoky rooms in London right into the absolute center of world power. I mean, their writings aren't just theory anymore. They're literally the strategic blueprints for an entirely new Europe.
So the old world is just gone, wiped away. What rises from the ashes of all these fallen monarchies? Well, it's a new world order, but it's not one defined by nations like we know. It's defined by a single, all-encompassing ideology.
Yeah, the map of Europe is totally redrawn. Those old royal families, the Habsburgs, the Romanovs, they're just gone. In their place, you have a patchwork of people's republics. And the craziest part? The group coordinating all of this from Paris is the First International. What started as a club for socialist thinkers has now become essentially a government for the entire continent.
And this slide really shows you the fork in the road, historically speaking. While our world was diving into the Gilded Age, that huge boom of capitalism, robber barons, all that, this alternate world enters a period they call the consolidation. It's totally different. All industry is seized by the state, and a brand new ruling class emerges. One based not on money or family name, but on pure loyalty to the party.
Okay, so you've got this entire continent of Europe united under a single red flag. What does that mean for everyone else? Well, the rest of the world is forced to react, right? And this creates a planet that's split in two, way earlier and, honestly, much more dramatically than in our own history.
And just look at where this leaves the United States. It becomes this island of capital, a lone fortress of capitalism. Its entire identity, its whole reason for being, becomes defined by its opposition to this red continent across the ocean. It's the defender of free enterprise in a world that now sees that system as a backward relic of exploitation.
And this really sets the stage for a massive global conflict. But it's a totally different kind of conflict than the ones we're used to. This isn't a fight between empires over who gets what colony. Nope. This is a pure, down-to-the-bone ideological struggle between two completely opposite ways of life, fighting for the future of the entire planet.
And here is a huge, huge consequence of all this. All those complicated rivalries between the German, British, and Russian empires that led to World War I in our timeline? They just don't exist here. They never happen. Instead, a Cold War kicks off, but it starts way back in the 1880s, and it shapes a 20th century that looks nothing like ours.
So let's fast forward. What does this world actually look like? What does it feel like in the year 2025, after more than a century and a half of this new world order?
Well, for one thing, life in this 2025 would probably feel a lot more uniform. Tech progress isn't about the next smartphone for you and me. It's all about massive state projects, stuff that brings glory to the collective. And culturally, forget about it. There's no jazz, no rock and roll, no modern art. Every song, every painting, every book, it all has to serve the revolution.
And this brings us to the core promise of the whole revolution, the big idea at the center of it all. The theory was the dictatorship of the proletariat, the state run by the workers, was supposed to be temporary. The idea was that after it had done its job, it would just become unnecessary and wither away, leaving behind a true stateless, classless utopia.
But, and this is the great irony, the movement's incredible success leads to its most horrifying betrayal. That temporary state, it never goes away. It becomes permanent. The party that led the charge becomes the new, unchallengeable ruling class. Instead of withering away, the state becomes all-powerful. Power doesn't dissolve, it just concentrates in new hands.
And the source material leaves us with this one final, chilling thought. The revolution actually succeeds in its first goal. It breaks the chains of the wage slave. But in doing so, it just replaces them with the unbreakable chains of the party.
And that really is the question this whole alternate history leaves us grappling with, isn't it? Is a world without exploitation worth it if it's also a world without freedom? It makes you think about the ultimate price of any utopia and that tricky relationship between equality and liberty. Definitely something to chew on.